I just got off the phone with one of my best friends, and you forget how good those childhood friends can make you feel after a conversation. It's really nice. But we were talking about some crazy things, and it invigorated my brain about a topic or two that I thought this video would be fun to do. I wanted to keep it short, so let's just talk. Let's just talk. Alright, so you caught me with my new e-pen. I love this fucking thing. I got it. I go to the best head shop ever in Portland, and some of the girls that work there are just so fucking knowledgeable. They're called bud tenders, and I will never call anyone a bud tender again who just doesn't know as much as these two do. They're so good. But anyways, it's a select strain pen, $25 for the pen, comes with a recharger. Get on it. And then you get these little vials of the CBD oil or whatever. Different prices, but it's really cool. I love this thing. I mean, my boyfriend and I got it for his birthday, which was a week or two ago. Forgot already, I'm kidding. But I got it as his gift, and we loved it so much. It was so convenient and so slick. I went back and got another one, and it's been helping our lungs. Oh my god. Like, for real, we were coughing really, really bad, and now this is so smooth. It's like, God, I don't ever want to smoke butane and fucking metal again, because I was using this bitch. It's my little oney. People would always come up to me on the street and be like, can I borrow a cigarette? I'm like, what cigarette's purple? What cigarette's purple? If you have a purple cigarette, show me it, because I think that's fascinating and that would be cool. But other than that, come on. Anyway, I wanted to tell you guys about this story. I was telling my friend Michaela. We had this really good phone call, and the thing I love about having conversations with friends that grew up with you and that are like okay with you going months and months without talking, even though this time it's been the hardest it's ever been to me because I've been a recluse and weird. But even though you go through those times, you come right back, you know, and everybody has those friends, and it's so great to have, and it's really important. But the reason it's so amazing is, like, you don't have to play catch up, and you jump right into the stories, and they know your body language. They know you, so they know how you're going to react, and they know how to calm you down, and they know when to rile you up. And, like, oh, I love that. I love that. But thank you for having that 3-hour phone conversation. My nipples are hard. I mean, seriously, this was insane. 3 hours. But we had some crazy fun conversation, and one of the things I told her was just a story I picked up from Dick Gregory. And Dick Gregory is this fascinating man. He's this black activist, super outspoken. He's a comedian. He makes me laugh every time I watch him, but all the YouTube comments are like, he's not funny. Why does he call himself a comedian? I think he's funny. Okay? I think he's funny because he delivers shit to you like truth's gonna hurt and I'm gonna seal it with approval. Like, he is just a non-stop force. And if you haven't heard of him, look him up. He was telling this really insanely interesting story about the origination of hurricanes. And I'm going to try to do the best I can, okay? But I'm not as good a storyteller as Mr. Dick. But he was saying that in Africa, all hurricanes that hit the eastern coast of the United States originate from one point off of the African coast, off the west coast of Africa. Now, if you look it up, just Google, search a map of hurricane patterns that come into the U.S., but they all have that originating point, and then they all flow the same pathway up to the east coast of America. Well, he was talking about how, ironically, or not, the Africans that were boarded onto slave ships back then, all boarded at that one point on the West African coast, and that their path that the ships took through the ocean waters is the same path that hurricanes follow. And that, weirdly, when the hurricanes, which almost always broach the water or reach the head of the storm at the Caribbean islands, that's also where the slaves were first docked and I think onboarded. He talks about this really in-depthly. I just thought the story was fascinating, how the storm follows the pattern, but the most fascinating part is that everywhere hurricanes hit are along the east coast, exactly at ports where slave ships were docked, and then black people were corralled off like fucking animals and sold to whatever rich white people could buy them. But weirdly, hurricanes don't hit Canada. They don't go past Maine. What is that? Like, that is something really, really interesting to understand. He talks about how many cultures around the world, They're called HERicanes because it is the cries and the screams of the African woman. And honestly, with some of the research I've been doing, and I've come to a fucking realization that I almost believe that people of color, or especially black people or African people, are like the true human beings of this planet, the true sentient beings, and how the European, Anglo, white, American, pale skin, we're just this disease on humanity. And this sounds really awful to say, and I was saying it to her and she was like, oh my god, and I was like, well, come on now, like, come on, I know white people can be good, but hear me, like, all wars are perpetuated by white people and white culture, and we take culture from people of color all across the world and we try to appropriate it onto ourselves, but it's just this diluted version. Like, go to any Chinese, fast food restaurant in America, that's not Chinese food. They're not eating that over there. I mean, come on, same with music and culture, movies. I mean, this is silly. Like, we do eradicate culture, and you can almost look at it, at white people, as a virus of humanity. And with where humanity's spiraling, and look at the two clowns running for office, don't you kind of think, like, maybe it's white people, right? But with that being said, even though the white man contributed to all this anger and aggression, and the storm patterns are following the black woman, I'm not saying, like, all white people should have white guilt. I just think we should recognize these thoughts and be able to talk about them and have conversation, and maybe then black people could be taken seriously in this country, and we could start listening to their stories, because they're plenty. You know what I mean? Like, am I making sense? This is hard to do when I talk to a screen, because I'm not able to get feedback, so if I'm going off the rails, whatever, deal with it. But we were talking about that too. I was telling Michaela, like, I'm not making myself responsible for how people interpret a message. I'm making myself responsible for getting the message out there. My only responsibility is to make sure I am creating something out of this perspective of reality I'm living, and that I'm vocalizing my truth. That's really all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to piss anyone off, but if it pisses you off and that's your reaction, then good, experience that. Like, I'm not trying to withhold any experiences here. I'm just saying, like, we need to stop censoring each other, and that does mean allow me to be mad. Allow me to use words you wouldn't use. Allow those words to be spoken to you, and if you don't associate with those words, let them flow through you. That's all. Like, if I say a word that upsets you, let it flow through you. Let it go over your head. Fine. Don't deal with it. You're choosing to be ignorant over the fact that I don't see words as a means of controlling people. I don't want to do that. Freedom of speech truly means all words are on the table. Nothing's off limits. You can talk to me however you want. If you need to call me a faggot because it helps you get a point across, do so. However, this is the big however, understand that when you put that energy out there, you are going to get back what you give. That's karmic retribution. That's natural law. I believe in that. So if you're going to go out and be a dick and be racist and ageist and sexist, and scream, inflammatory remarks, understand people aren't going to like you. And even if they pretend to, it's fake. It's an ego love. That's not going to, help you sleep at night. That's not your drive to happiness. It's just I have such a problem with people censoring, like, how I speak. It's just so obnoxious to me. But anyway, back to the hurricane thing. I think it's really interesting. Dick Gregory talks about many cultures describing hurricanes as the plight of the black woman. But also, if you think about that, cultures around the world are speaking about this as what would we call that? Like a fairy tale, a traditional story, like a parable, like however you want to categorize that. In their culture, it's real. In their culture, they're tracking what white people do because they're like, what's the flood going to be? What's the aftermath? Like, what's happening? How many cultures do you think look at us, especially Americans, and just say, my God, what don't they see? What don't they see that they're doing across the world? Because, we don't see a lot of it. We're kept, from that information, or we're told if we look up that information, scary things happen. It's all stuff you have to weigh. How much do you want to live in a lie? And I was talking to my friend about how, I keep saying my friend, like she doesn't exist. She's going to be like, what are you doing? But when I was talking to her, I was like, it's interesting having to, like, portray these opinions I'm having in a way that doesn't make me appear crazy, but then also not really caring if I do come off crazy, because I want to just get this information out there, but it's like, who's speaking on this stuff? Like, do you believe that hurricanes could be Earth and just a reaction to what white man did to black woman. Like I'm learning so much about like the black culture and what's being, eroded in America during this time and everything they're fighting for. It's just so sad. I didn't realize that Mississippi was still fighting integration and segregation laws in schools. Like, we have a real issue we're dealing with. So maybe it is Earth really fighting back and trying to help the black woman have a strong voice. Maybe black people are, or people of color are, the true human beings of this planet. And maybe as white people, it's our responsibility to understand we need to listen. We need to stop with the forceful aggression. Stop demanding that we're the authoritative figure. Why don't we commingle? Like, all these people of color, all of these traditions and these things being lost by, nations across the world because we're choosing to have borders and say, oh, you aren't supposed to come onto American soil unless you have white skin. Like, stop treating people like this. Stop treating refugees and immigrants like they're less than human. They belong here just as much as you. No ifs, ands, or buts. You don't have any right to build a wall or tell who gets to come in and who gets to stay out. Like, you have no say, no power. And money is not that power. Money's a fake power. And once we all realize that we don't need to buy into this idea of go to work for 40, 50, 60 hours a week, be a slave wage labor person, like, that's not why you're here on Earth. You're here to do good things. You're here to create. You're here to get a message out there, and you're here to speak your truth. Like, honestly, that's just, like, I'm so tired of hearing people say, like, oh, if it doesn't make money, like, everything's about that. It's like, well, do you love living in this world that feels like a prison in a prison? Do you love that? Do you love seeing your family members and your friends getting sick or being beaten up on a daily by their boss at work or with their lifestyle, whether they can't keep up with bills or their kids or cost? It's like, come on. Don't you want to help each other? Don't you want to understand, like, we're being led down this path of, like, negativity and chaos via the left logical side of the brain rather than, allowing the free-flowing creativity of the right feminine side of the brain to just take hold? Like, don't you kind of want to be able to question people who seem like they're doing ill intent onto you and your loved ones? Like, whoa, it's just so weird. People who fight for freedom in this country are also, like, fighting to oppress it, but they think that's patriotic. I have such a hard time understanding this. I really am curious to know what you want to weigh in about the hurricane thing, how it doesn't breach Canada, it doesn't go down to Mexico, and yet we're bombarded on the East Coast all throughout with these massive hurricanes. And is it, our punishment? Is that the redemption for black women in this country who are still fighting to be freed? I mean, what if hurricanes went away when all black women were freed? Dick Gregory says it's black women. I don't know if it's black people or if it's black women, but I love this thought he had, and I think it's a good one, and I think it's something to be explored. And, I can't even fathom beginning a conversation about slavery, but man, do I wish I knew a different perspective, because I think the one I grew up learning in history books and seeing in movies was whitewashed. And I have a feeling that the traditions and the stories being told in Black family, I bet they're really valuable. And I say that genuinely. I hope that's not coming off any other way. But anyway, weird video, kind of out of the blue. I thought this topic was really unique. When Michaela and I were talking about it, we had a pretty good banter back and forth, so let me know your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, and also if you have anything to contribute to it, please put them in the comments below. I love reading those. But as always, take care of yourself the rest of the day. Do you, and stay safe. Peace out.